Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 968. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
We're in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
It's happy birthday, even though he's dead, John Pertwee. John Pertwee, born on this day as we record this, as this episode is released, July the 7th, 1919. John Pertwee.
The burger world will never be the same.
Yeah.
As opposed to other British stuff from 7/7, right?
Yeah, that's right. See, I chose to remember the John Pertwee birthday as opposed to the terrorist attack in the underground, whatever year that was. What year was that? 2014? I don't know. Can't remember anymore.
2007.
It was 2000. Oh, it was 7. That's right. 777. Oh, geez, that was awful. That's so long ago. Wow. Well, let's remember John Pertwee instead.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
105 years ago. I like it when it says, "Oh, happy birthday to John Pertwee." Would have been 105. Thinking, I'm not sure there's a lot of people who would, 105 is a hell of a milestone.
But not too many.
There's a few, but it's like, yeah, John Pertwee. Conceived on Armistice Day. So the story goes.
Well, that makes sense.
That's an actual day, an actual thing.
So
all right.
Sean Pertwee last month turned 60.
Wow.
So that means John Pertwee was 44, almost 45 when Sean was born.
Well, that's all right. Alfred Enoch is like, what, 30? And his dad, William Russell.
He's older than that now. I thought he was closer to...
Well, close to 40, but like William Russell had him when he was like 62.
I hear Enoch and I think of that really terrible politician from England who I only vaguely know, but I just know he's
Enoch
bad.
Powell? Is that who
That's
we're talking about?
Yeah.
Alfred Enoch is 35. So
35. And his father, William Russell, died
63, 64 at the time.
Yeah, wow. Titans all. Hey, this episode, we're talking to Tim Burrows of the Missing Episodes Doctor Who podcast. Just get an update on Film is Fabulous and their initiatives in storing and cataloging film collections from people who have submitted their stuff to them, and people who are dying as well. Death seems to be the theme of things here.
Hooray.
So, yeah, let's carry on.
As I talk in a sealed up room in extreme heat.
Yeah, we're trying to do this as quickly as possible so we don't die of overheating, basically.
They died.
They died, yeah, of heat. So this could be the last you ever hear of us if this episode goes too long. And because we turn off the AC when this stuff happens, if we even have AC, which we don't. We're in
because
Canada.
Our survival is second to your pleasure, the listener.
Exactly on this day. So that's coming.
My brain went places it shouldn't have gone.
I don't even know where it went, Chris. I just know that it was
don't think about it.
I know it
shouldn't have, but inevitably will. So there's that.
That's true. So anyway, that's coming up later on in the show. Good nice chunk of that to listen to. We recorded just on Friday. Tim had been up for 30 hours after having watched election coverage from the night before.
Can I just sing the praises of all the politicians, despite no matter what their background was, and the broadcasters? Because I turned it on in the morning. I'm like, my God, the same people I was watching last night. They must all be exhausted.
I know. I was thinking of that. Like John Curtis, CURT. It's understand. But bear with us, okay, England. Like we only watch BBC News for the most part when a monarch dies or there's an election. So we've watched it like twice in the last 5
Doctor
years.
Who gets rebooted.
Yes, because there's always a live,
What does Lizo have to say? Come on.
Yeah, Lizo. And
pardon me. Sorry, Lizo.
That's right. And I'm just apologizing on his behalf. And so I never really saw John Curtis. He's like the analytics guy, I guess, but he's like 97 years old, and they're keeping him up the whole night. Like he's there. He shows up at the end of the coverage. Like, what are you doing? Put him to bed. He's tired. He's old. Get him some sleep.
I'd like to do a shout out to a friend of the show, Len Alaraya, because he and his band they were the house band for the Times Radio live stream. So I was watching that as I was doing work, and I was sending him pictures of himself and his band in the studio, and then he was sending me pictures from inside the studio. He had a little corner of the couch because the Times Radio leans Tory, so he had like a Euro positive. He had like the European flag and like a couple books scattered around just to put in the labor vibes.
I was wondering because when I saw that guy from GB News, ex of GB News, I can't remember his name now, who's on this, says, wait a second, what's he doing there? Oh, now I understand. Interesting that the Times would have a jazz quartet as their house band for the quartet.
I mean, a gig's a gig, as he would tell you, so.
Suppose so.
And they played quite well, because I know Len's going to listen to this. So, Glenn, you did a very good job.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I admit I had the live stream up there, but I was watching BBC News. So I kind of had it on mute. No offense. The one thing that I wanted to tune in was actually on mute. So I saw them play jazz, which for Chris would probably be the best way to experience jazz.
Absolutely, yeah.
Straight blowing. Something.
There you go. Silver Nemesis topical. We'll talk about that a little later in this podcast.
Yeah, it is too.
Yeah, totally.
Oh
is.
Dear, the word Silver Nemesis and topical probably shouldn't go together.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the Silver Nemesis topical cream to get rid of shingles.
I had to get rid of memories of watching Silver Nemesis.
That's called lead poisoning.
It is called lead poisoning. Yeah, Dolores Gray had a line of that. Anyway, there's a new issue of SFX coming out this coming week here, and there's a whole Doctor Who section in it. But the SFX released part of it about Russell T Davies talking about how Varada Sethu was cast as the new companion. Russell says right out front, listen. She's not coming back as Mundy Flynn from Boom. She's not the same character. They just
shut
liked
up,
her in
nerds,
that.
I think he said, basically.
So don't try to draw a straight line from the two because they do not exist. It's an entirely different character. We just thought, hey, we like her. Let's just cast her again. And so they did. So there you go.
It's never happened before in the history of Doctor Who or RTD.
They even mentioned that. It's like, we've done it before. Free management. Many others. Peter Capaldi, for God's sake. So
Colin Baker.
Colin Baker. Even I'm just thinking modern series. When it was. It feels like there's less, each director in the classic series would have their little cadre of actors that they would drag around with them. Douglas Camfield, especially, as I'm thinking about this, and they'd be cast in many different roles throughout the history of the series. But in modern times, you would think that wouldn't be as much of a thing. But no, here we are. We've got
the classic series fans tie themselves in knots about Colin Baker as much as current fans do about all this stuff. Probably they're fans.
Yeah. Do other I don't think there's been a case where someone from Star Trek has come back. No, there is. Tim Russ was in. Yeah.
Yep. He was in Star Trek 6.
He was in.
Oh yeah.
Was he in? I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Yeah, he's on Sulu's crew as a human.
Oh right. He's also in.
And then there's what's his face who played.
He's in Die Hard from Space as well.
Cisco's dad was also in Star Trek 6.
That's right. He's awesome as both. He's awesome as Star Trek 6 and 4, and also as Cisco's dad.
Tim Russ is
and
also.
Don't forget Jeffrey Combs, who is everything.
He's everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tim Russ was in that Starship Mine, I think it's called, where it's basically Die Hard on the Enterprise, where Captain Picard has to fight off terrorists, so they do a beryllium sweepers. That's a great episode.
I like that despite itself.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't have liked it because it is super derivative, but it was a lot of fun. So.
It was a lot of fun. Remember that? Remember when Star Trek was good? Those were the days.
You know what? Here's the thing. I don't particularly like most new Star Trek, but people do. I'm not holding it against them. Enjoy yourselves. Whatever. Like, it's not... nothing wrong with it if you like it.
Yeah.
I still have yet to start the last season of Discovery. I'll get there at some point. And then, of course, the second season of Prodigy just dropped on Netflix.
Let me spoil it for you. There's a lot of hugging.
Yeah, a lot of hugging. Not in Prodigy, just less hugging. It's tough to animate hugging, so they don't do it as much in Prodigy.
I've never seen the second season. I saw most of the first season, and actually, to be fair, Prodigy, for what it is, a kid show, is not bad.
It's a kid, but it's a kid show. Erica's watching.
Sure, but so is Clone Wars.
True. Yeah, but you got to watch Clone Wars to understand Ahsoka, though. So you have.
Well, guess what? I guess I don't understand Ahsoka.
Rebels.
Sorry, Rebels, and a little bit of Clone Wars.
Get your spiteful jokes correct.
Listen, the best commentary I ever saw on Clone Wars, where they showed some real tragic. It's all in Lego. There's some guy just animated Lego, and it's as if that's not difficult. And he shows the most tragic ending, and then it goes to a bunch of Clone Warriors playing the saxophones as the end theme goes. It's like just terrible tragedy. Baby.
Funny.
Yeah.
Funny. Anyway, SFX Magazine coming out this coming week with some Doctor Who stuff in it, even though it's quite a ways away from new Doctor Who, as we'll also get to in a little bit. But first, Gallifrey One, the first block of guests. They're doing it slightly different this year. They're not waiting to like have a massive giant block and announcing that. Basically, they're confirming smaller blocks as they are confirmed, basically, is how it's happening. So that's why we got a quick little surprise announcement, literally like half an hour after our episode dropped last week. So this is the oldest possible news compared to last week. So Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Katie Manning, Fraser Hines, David Gooderson, who apparently was at Gallifrey One 10 years ago. I don't remember that. I don't remember him being there.
Well, then it didn't happen.
I suppose so. And then Lizzie Hopley from Big Finish, Paul Mars, Jonathan Morris, his first ever USA convention. I'm sure he's
Paul
gonna,
Mars's first galley. Yeah.
First Galley One, but no, Jonathan Morris has never been to a USA convention at all. I'm sure he'll find it very even-keeled and mild-mannered. Gary Russell, Lisa McMullen, Tony Lee, Alfie Shaw, and Jason Ellery, all part of that first block for Gallifrey One that's happening in February 14th to 16th, 2025. Gallifrey One. I'll have just turned 50 when that happens. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I will expect a birthday.
Elder statesman.
I think so. I wonder if I get a Warren, do you get a free pass? You're older than us.
I did not get a free pass, but I just want to do a peek behind the curtain when Stephen messaged me talking about watching a lot of World War II documentaries, and he says, I seem to be going through a phase. And I said, yeah, it's called turning 50. You're a 50-year-old male. Of course you're watching World War II documentaries.
Well, no,
I say this to somebody who does the same thing.
Yeah.
As the spouse of an American, do you qualify for an AARP card that you can maybe use for discounts again?
Discounts? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't looked.
Please
into
do that so I can make fun of you.
Sure. I'm sure I don't. I'm sure that's not how it works. I don't automatically get a green card. I don't automatically have dual citizenship, even though
I think this is the worst possible time to want to have citizenship of America.
Right?
And I'm pretty sure a lot of Americans would agree with me on that one.
Yeah, this is why whenever things...
You get to cast a ballot, though.
True.
A presidential ballot. I don't. This is why I watch World War II documentary. Whenever things are going bad in the world, I watch World War II.
Oh, it could be worse, and
exactly. Just like, and so I've watched a lot of World War II documentaries in the last few weeks. So
that's called catastrophizing, and I'm right there with you.
A little bit. But Gallifrey One won't be a catastrophe unless a catastrophe happens in November, in which case, we'll see. But yeah, let's look forward to Gallifrey One nonetheless. February 14th, 16th, we'll be there. Presidential coups notwithstanding, of course.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
He'd somehow coup himself.
Yeah.
If he were to win.
Short, this isn't the bad event that's happening in November. Ncuti Gatwa is coming to London Comic-Con in November. November, 16th, 17th at the Olympia in London.
He'll be there just the Saturday.
Just a Saturday, he's there. That's right, just a Saturday. Everyone's losing their mind over the prices of the autographs and the photo shoots and the talks. This is the thing that we haven't determined. Is the talk? You hit buy now on the website.
Watch, like,
see, I don't know if it's a panel because London Comic Con is mostly just sort of done like autographs and photo shoots. Like that's been the thing. They haven't really had that many discussion panels sometimes.
So it's like a Creation Con kind of a deal. It may be done by Creation for all I know.
I don't know who it's done by. But you click on the buy now when it comes to the talk and it just takes you to the general buy now page for tickets to the London
there's
Comic-Con.
No specific information.
So we don't know what that is. So we've never been to London Comic Con, obviously, because we're not in London. So
22% of attendees are repeat customers.
All right.
So 78% are not.
Yeah. Well, I
was
remember
going to say that doesn't sound like something you should brag about.
No, I remember when Jodie Whittaker went to her first. So she went back in 2022, which technically was not at the end of her reign. It was like in February of 2022. Her last episode had yet to go out, but I think she was done shooting Doctor Who by that point. Capaldi's first was 2018. He had been done Doctor Who. I remember Jodie Whittaker never did like a panel. Eccleston didn't either when he did his first one of these, I think, either. So these talks, this is why I'm wondering what the talk means, £20 for a talk. It feels like it would be a panel because you would
otherwise
pay $20 like
chinwag with you for $20. You could charge a lot more than that. I mean,
just like, exactly. So some people have sort of like speculated, well, wait a second. Like, as I said, Jodie Whittaker more or less went to this after she left, Doctor Who. Same with Capaldi.
Doctor Who fans have speculated? What are you talking about?
I know, and so people are thinking, does this mean that Gatwa is no longer in the role?
Yeah.
But
I mean, we know he only ever signed up for the 2 years originally.
Or at least the Disney signed up for 2 years worth.
Listen, the 50th anniversary special, nobody had signed anything except Jenna Coleman. So, I mean, come on. Yeah. Like, this could mean anything.
Yep. They took a leap of faith and it paid off. Compared to Bonnie Langford, who's also at LFCC.
Right.
Her photo price and autograph price are £25.
All right. Well,
that seems kind of reasonable, actually.
A piece.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, versus 125. Yeah.
But also, she's not the star of the show.
Colin Baker, also £25 for either.
Well, this is Gatwa's first ever convention appearance, so, making hay with the sunshines. This is also a very different situation when it comes to Doctor Who, in that they made 2 seasons back to back and then won't be shooting any new season of Doctor Who for at least another 6 months. Yeah, probably early 2025, which has never been in the even during the gap year in 2008, 2009, when they're making that, they immediately rolled into making Matt Smith's first season, more or less. Like, there wasn't that long of a gap. They cast him in January of 2009, and they started shooting like basically that summer. April. I think. Yeah, April was it? Yeah,
I think it was April.
Yeah. So even though there was very little Doctor Who on air, they were still making.
Wait. April is when it launched for 2010, maybe.
Yeah,
no, I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, it was like early spring.
It was early spring.
That just gives us more time for pointless and doom-laden speculation.
That's true. Ncuti Gatwa fired in BBC plot.
Scandal. Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
Show deemed too woke. They never say by who.
They never say that. They would never say that. A little teaser for next week on the podcast. Richard Bengel's dropping by to talk about Doctor Who collection box sets. We recorded that earlier this week because of the season 15 set actually coming out in North America barely a month after we got the season 20 set, which we've been waiting for like 11 months.
Side note, when it rains, it pours, apparently, for that. So Stephen and I both ordered from the BBC shop.
Yep.
For season 20, and also Celestial Toymaker for me.
That's right.
And the release date for the DVD came and went, and no news about any shipments or anything like that, because the BBC shop, for whatever reason, chooses not to send stuff out when it's actually available.
Yeah.
So Stephen went out and bought it on Amazon at whatever higher price, I think.
I did. I was impatient. Yeah.
And then I got a shipping notification saying, "Oh, yours is on your way."
So did I.
And Stephen got his.
Yep.
And then they came.
Yep.
And then a second package came with the same content.
They sent it twice for free.
They sent it twice.
Yeah.
So BBC shop, if you're listening, you're not getting that second copy back.
No.
We'll call that recompense of some sort.
Yeah.
So Warren hadn't ordered it, so I sent my second copy of season 20 and Toymaker to Warren. So.
Yeah, I'm okay. Help me out with this. I'm debating. I kind of lean towards watching Toymaker in color. Convince me otherwise.
Oh no, do it.
Color.
Do it. I think it works. I haven't watched the black and white version, but it's such a
the style.
Yeah, it's such a liberal reimagining of it that you might as well watch it in color, because it's not trying to be a piece of 1960s TV, nor does it have to be, honestly.
No.
Fully watch it in color. Fully. That's my advice to you. So yeah. So
I don't know how much it matters, but at least for earlier releases, usually or quite often anyway, the black and white ones are full frame and the color ones are widescreen.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Oh, I never noticed that before.
I don't know if that's like universal, but I know it's some of them. Anyway, so it depends how much of the TV you want to use, Warren. So I mean, you can watch the full frame and just stretch the image.
Sorry, that reminds me of
turn on motion smoothing.
way back when there was a Laserdisc store in Edmonton. Like you could buy and rent, one of the few places to buy and rent Laserdisc. And this one guy didn't want to get anything letterboxed because I pay good money for my TV. I want to use every pixel of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Seriously? You want to see a crappy version? They're saying, all right, go for it. Sure.
Well, I listen, I know of one prominent classic Doctor Who writer who uses full frame on his TV. He won't be mentioned here, but you know who you are.
You're shaming me.
I remember decades ago now,
right?
Doing a presentation in university of full screen versus widescreen.
Right.
And specifically, I used JFK as an example.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a good example, yeah.
The movie or the president?
The president.
Okay.
The first Panavision president. Yes.
How does this Zapruder film look in widescreen compared to 4:3?
Well, that is zoomed up, actually.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
So just and the reaction from those watching the presentation was astounding insofar as not realizing how large, because JFK was shot in scope 235.
Yeah, and uses multiple formats to film and everything else too.
He was shot in Dallas, Texas, I think, as well. You'll find, but
okay.
And
it's hard to refute that, but
I
specifically used a scene on a plane where there's a scene between Kevin Costner and Walter Matthau.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
And just the amount of stuff you see or don't see depending on which version. And I was flabbergasted at how many people didn't realize there was such a stark difference between 133 and 235.
Yeah,
it's amazing how people people were generally against widescreen. If they knew what it was, people were just like, get this off my TV. Why'd you break my TV?
Bars. I don't want no black bars on the top and bottom.
Widescreen TVs kind of came in and people just kind of forgot about all that, even though you do see letterboxing on widescreen TVs
and now.
Sometimes.
A lot of stuff is like 2:1 or like 2:35 to 1.
Widescreen TVs are 16:9. And
I know, but
anything more than that is
like Doctor Who is now like what 2:1. I don't know what it is. 2:1.
Part of it is with increased resolution and everything else, you just don't notice as much because you actually aren't taking a pixel hit like you are with letterboxing. Much as I always opted for letterboxing, like it was because it looks better. Yeah. You are taking a hit with that little resolution to work with, and you kind of, I guess you technically are now, but who cares?
I'm never surprised when I hear people not wanting pillar boxing on their widescreen TVs.
Yeah.
With watching old content,
which I will go out of my way to do sometimes.
It's still insane.
What an epic! Can we get back to the news? Just because this is, I literally
because we're talking next about full frame content. So this is relevant.
I suppose it is. I was literally halfway through explaining this. Richard Bignell was on the thing of the season 9. I'm trying to dial back to where I was. I'm trying to rewind. Other podcasts would edit. We don't do that. I'm rewinding back. Richard Bignell on the podcast next week talking about season 15, which will join our season 20 set. That's where we are. There we go. We've established that again. We've gotten back.
Anyway, back to pillar boxing.
And season 15 is coming out, was it next week after?
Tuesday. Yeah, I was expecting it to come the week after, which is why we scheduled the Bignell thing.
So I should get in a month and a half because I actually ordered that one from the DC shop.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck. Good luck, and you'll get 3 copies as well. So
get in September, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, Amazon tells me it's shipping and will arrive on Tuesday. So next week, Bignell's on, and it's great talking about PDF stuff and other sorts about that. But he held his cards close to his vest because we recorded that in July the 2nd, and 2 days later they announced the next collection set, which is coming October 21st in the UK. Yes, Chris.
Before you drop that news,
almost got it out.
I know you almost got there. I'm going to cut you off though because I have to. So I just want to put it out there. So last year when I was in Britain, I met up with Blu-ray range exec producer Russell Minton.
Okay, this is relevant. All right.
Met up with him for coffee and just to catch up and whatever. And he had made the suggestion during that conversation.
Right. Why
don't you get Richard Bignell on to talk about the PDFs and the work he does and stuff like that? So just shout out to Russell for that suggestion because that's where it all went.
Where we are. I think he's been on twice, Russell Minton, and the second time even way back then. he suggested Richard.
He made that suggestion then as well.
Yeah, so it's been in the works for years now. So it's good to have him on.
So he's been waiting for us to get it done, and now it's done.
It's done. Bignell's on. Russell Minton. So suggest someone else. We'll wait 4 years to do it.
Because I haven't heard your interview with him yet. So like Russell was telling me how they'd put Bignell up in a hotel for a week, and he'd just sit there for like a solid week scanning pages. And prepping and all that kind of stuff.
He literally talks about that in next week's interview.
Excellent.
Dedication.
Going to the BBC script library, or documents library and archive, and it's amazing. Anyway, that's next week. We didn't talk about season 25 because he didn't tell me that it was coming out, even though he might not even know himself that it was about to be announced. But yeah, season 25. Sylvester McCoy is complete on Blu-ray now. With I got to tell you, the trailer was cool. It had various clips of like special editions of all the stories have them.
All four
stories. But the clips from Happiness Patrol, I have to tell you,
with all the extra signage and stuff.
I am intrigued by that.
Yeah,
I'm really intrigued by it.
I'm not sure what to think about that yet, because it looks interesting, and I'm sure it adds something, but it's such a stark change from what we're used to.
It is, but whenever they do, every time I watched, Paradise Towers was set inside an apartment building, but Happiness Patrol ostensibly was not. It's supposed to be outside, but it never ever felt like it was
very
outside.
Studio.
It felt very studio. Even as a kid, I was like, you can't fool me. This is a studio. Come on, that's not outside at all. But the very brief clips of that you see in the trailer of the special edition, makes it look like they're actually in a city with just a cloudy sky kind of thing, kind of like Tim Burton's Batman, that kind of feel to it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see what they've done to it.
What I find funny about all this is that and I don't have a problem with giving these guys a free pass on this, but we give them a free pass, and yet you and I, Stephen, go out of our way to obtain 60 gig copies of original film prints of Star Wars, as if somehow that's any better. Really, somehow it has to be holy writ, which it does.
Yeah.
So why do we get so wound up about that, which we should, and not about this? And I'm not saying we should get wound up about this, but I just kind of find it funny, the contrast between the two.
Because we are offered the original as well. This is
that's a good point. Yeah.
We wouldn't go through this effort of scanning 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter film copies
Spanish
of the original Star Wars.
They were,
Exactly. If we just had like a properly cleaned up original version of the Star Wars trilogy, we wouldn't be doing it. There would be people who have just wasted billions of years of work trying to remaster these things. We don't have to do that.
You're right.
We have a fully... Listen, we just got season 20. We have 3 versions of the 5 Doctors. We've got the original, the 20th anniversary, and the 40th
watching the new one. I
anniversary.
love the new effect on it. It's really the whatever it is, the time column, the crappy... And I do love the crappy video effect from the original. Yeah, Time Scoop.
Time Scoop,
The new one looks really cool, I gotta say.
Yeah. I haven't watched that yet, but you get all 3. You get all 3 different versions of it. So that's
you got a point there.
Yeah. But there's updated effects for 3 of the 4 stories, and then special editions for all 4 as well. This is really interesting. And I'm looking forward to this. Looking for Dursley, the latest in the Looking For ... series with Toby Haydock and Chris Chapman. Looking for Dursley McClendon, the actor who was in Remembrance of the Daleks, who died of AIDS,
playing Mike,
very young. Yeah.
Okay, so back when I would have seen that, so we would have seen it in what, 89, probably?
Yes, probably 89, I think.
89, 90, somewhere in there.
It happened very quickly on camera. They turned it around pretty quick, I think, as I recall.
And I saw it before that. In fact, so did you, Chris. We saw a pirate version of it from the BBC.
Yeah, somebody
not from them, but yeah.
Somebody at we've told the story before, but somebody from the local Doctor Who club had a off-air recording in PAL, and there was
we pulled our money together to change it.
Yeah, to do a PAL to NTSC conversion, and then
cost $120 in '89 money. Jesus.
So a bunch of us got it way in advance of ever seeing it on PBS.
Yeah, right.
But as I said in the trailer, McClendon was 22. Wow. Like I had no. Like I think, like when I was 22, I was a young idiot, and here's this dude, like action hero, chiseled jaw, like impressing ace, killing Daleks and whatever, and like, damn, 22.
Well, I saw this discourse about the new Beverly Hills Cop movie. People were reminding us that in that movie, Eddie Murphy, who just was a complete movie star, is 22.
22.
Like, it's insane.
Young
You just
kid.
watch, you're like, you think this guy's got to be 35. Not because he looks old, but because he acts like a movie star.
Yeah.
Because
I think for part of it for him is the fact he still looks the same now as he did.
Pretty close, yeah. And he's in his
40 years
60s.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
For what it's worth, Remembrance of the Daleks for us, KSPS. I checked my own personal records for this. March 25th, 1989. So about 6 months
that was pretty quick
after it aired, which is a lot. Listen, kids, back in those days, that was a pretty quick turnaround for.
6 month turnaround was fantastic.
Yeah, and it was a one-off. It was like a pledge break. I remember
It was
that
a big
night.
deal, as I recall.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Probably kind of like they did when they showed Tomb and Resistance's use.
Yeah, in like 92 as well.
92.
Which I remember watching Resistance and whatever it is, and getting alternately overjoyed to see Doctor Who content and kind of mad about the whole Anorak thing. So
here's the funny.
The Anorak thing. I mean, for us in North America, that was not a reference. That was not a reference.
No,
I
I
had.
could
I
at
can
age
still tell
17.
we were being looked down upon somehow.
Yeah.
I suppose so. One person I know years ago now did a re-edit, not a re-edit as such, of Resistance is Useless. But they took all the clips from the episodes and replaced them with like DVD quality copies and
Nice.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it's made it look a whole lot nicer.
Yeah. For what it's worth, the making of Doctor Who on KSBS for us in Spokane aired December 10th, 1988. So as I remember that, it was. I saw the making of Doctor Who, which is finally being released in full.
This is the NJN one, right?
Exactly, the Eric Luskin one.
And thus began your descent into hell.
It
Steve.
did. It absolutely did. It basically.
It's responsible for you watching studio footage, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That was the gateway drug, the marijuana, if you will, to his later crack.
I went to college for broadcast and TV production because of the making of Doctor Who, which I saw on December 10th, 1988. But which is funny because I saw that. And they had music. Kev McCullough was playing music from Remembrance of the Daleks, which, like, what is that? I've never seen that story. Well, I saw that like 6 months or 4 months after that. And then Silver Nemesis only ever finally came in like early 90s, I want to say, as I looked through this. Yeah, so it's March 31st, 1990, by the looks of it, is when, basically, I saw the making of Silver Nemesis over a year before I saw Silver Nemesis. So.
All of this stuff just reminds me of how difficult it was to be a fan back in that time
really
frame.
It was.
Or the flip side to that, how freaking lucky we are these days with the internet and you know, now like worldwide simulcasts and you know, whatever other modern the other mod cons that we have.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we didn't have the discourse back then.
No,
so there
we
is
didn't.
that. Now, I was not going to make fun of Steven because I also went into broadcast production probably for similar reasons, more nebulous. And also, I became a journalist. And if you don't think Sarah Jane Smith had something to do with that, and Edison Carter from Network 23.
Right. That's probably it. There is also a studio and location footage on this, and they especially mentioned it, which means there's probably more of it that wasn't on the original
It's just for
DVDs.
your benefit.
Totally is. As I've told Russell Minton, I said, listen, if you have 25 hours straight of raw studio footage, I would 100% watch every single second of that. Ever. Do not feel like you need to cut it down for my sake, because I will watch.
You're talking like it's a drug deal in an alley, which it basically is.
I will take I will take all of it. I will watch. I don't care if it's just like cameras being moved around. I want to see it all.
Sit there naked, greased up with a case of Budweiser.
That's an image I did not
hours
need
of
in my
studio
head.
footage.
Thank you, Chris.
It's so great. It's so fascinating to me. I just love it.
I'm curious. So the behind the sofa stuff has a lot of the usual people. Janet Fielding's glasses look really extreme,
Right.
but Sheila Hancock,
Dame Sheila Hancock. Yeah.
Sheila Hancock for Behind the Sofa.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hell of a name.
And the best thing about Behind the Sofa stuff is she's not going to sit there and only watch Happiness Patrol. She's going to be on everything.
Yeah.
I assume, because everyone usually is, and that just
It's gonna be hilarious.
that's gonna be a trip.
It's gonna be.
Like Jessica Martin, who played Mags in Greatest Show, is there as well, but she's had a lingering or ongoing relationship with Doctor Who since
true.
Was she in Big
since
Finish or
the 80s
something?
with
I think so. Yeah.
comics.
Oh, okay.
Comics too. Yeah, she's,
I didn't know.
she's a
Okay.
comics artist now. Yeah, yeah.
I did
absolutely.
not know that.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's a little more ingrained in the lore than say somebody like Dame Sheila Hancock would
Yeah.
be. But
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's always good to people who don't know the lore. It's actually fun.
Oh,
As
it's
opposed
way
to us
better.
lore-mongering weirdos.
Yeah, it's way better actually. Yeah.
yeah, if only what's her face from Silver Nemesis, the one you just mentioned a few minutes ago, Stephen, and I always forget.
Who?
The woman in the limo.
Oh, Dolores Gray. Yeah.
Yes, if only she were still alive.
I was going to say she was elderly then, so I mean...
Yeah.
Well, she's probably in her 50s, 60s. Right?
Yeah.
Was she? I thought she was older
She
than
died
that.
in the early 2000s, I think. I can't remember.
Well, she was playing older anyway, so...
Yeah, I think she was. Or
It's also interesting that they're doing Dr. Matthew Sweet normally does like one ginormous interview with somebody
Yeah.
from that season, but this time around we've got, I'm assuming, shorter.
Yeah, not one act, but
yet.
3 at the greatest show in the galaxy, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sophie, Andrew Cartmel, and Chris Clough. The Chris Clough one, I'm looking forward to that. we have not been kind to Chris Clough over the years, and I'm very much looking forward to this, to see him tell his own story, because there have been other examples of Matthew Sweet stuff on the Blu-ray sets where, like, he, at least for the ones that run an hour and a half, he, like his one with Colin Baker, for example, he got super deep.
He did.
And I don't know if he's going to have the time for that for Clough, but
I don't know.
I'm so looking forward to that.
He's on the Five Doctors commentary, and he keeps it not super deep. He's got like 3 or 4 people on there, and the highlight so far is Janet Fielding complaining about how in Hartnell, well, not Hartnell, whatever, the first Doctor,
Richard Hurndall, yeah,
sends her off to make up the tea, and she's and apparently this was just in the script, and then there's a whole back and forth, and then Davison tries to mansplain to her, and then Sweet calls out Davison for mansplaining, all of which is a lot more fun to watch than the actual show itself.
Ah, delightful.
And I love the show itself.
Yeah, haven't watched that. As I said, it's all stuff I got to look forward to in season 20 yet. I better watch it quick because season 15 is coming out before you even get to 25.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I still have 9, 2, and now 20 to go through.
Crack the plastic.
And 9 I got when I was in Britain last year.
know.
What does it say that I cracked the plastic before you did, Chris? Come on.
It is quite offensive, to be honest. But
I still haven't double checked, but I'm pretty sure my Blu-ray drive and my Xbox is dying anyway.
no.
But we have also, you mentioned like special editions, whatever, for Silver Nemesis, just because, hey, why not? VHS extended version, which I definitely coveted back in the day.
I hated that. It was terrible.
The extended cut of Fenric,
right?
And
Fenric is good.
Is actually good.
Fenric is good.
Even I think that.
I just ate that stuff up back in the 90s.
I remember watching the Silver Nemesis one, and to be fair, they didn't have the music. There was no new music, so basically J&T just like chopped in the outtakes into the episode and then back, and so there was no music for the added scenes, and just like this thing just seems long and dumb. So I'm curious to see what they do with the special edition of Silver Nemesis.
And it already seems long and dumb.
Yeah,
because there's also an omnibus, cut down omnibus version.
Yeah, the omnibus. I think that's the one that's pretty much direct, kind of like the in the tradition of the 70s Christmas tree. I'm curious to see what that one's like. I'm curious to see how it compares. So there are four different versions of Silver Nemesis on this. The original extended VHS version. And then the special edition in the tradition of 70s Christmas repeats. Then there's the special edition. Again, they haven't come up with the different names of these. And then the original version as well. So 4 different versions.
When I read the content for the set, all I could think of was back to 11 years ago when we did the late night Silver Nemesis commentary at WesterCon.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And just, could you imagine if we had 4 different versions to pick from when we did that?
Oh my God.
We had 2, I guess, really, but
we did at
still.
the time. Yeah. Anyway,
there's also a thing on Doctor Who collections and memorabilia and whatnot, hosted by Emily Cook, but David J. Howe is I know very prominently featured in that.
That's right. He's on that. Yeah,
that man has a lot of stuff.
got a lot of stuff. Lots of stuff
from sets and old days.
And poor old Emily Cook, who was not born in the 1980s, probably looking at all of us sad sacks and all the stuff that we collected in those days, going, "Oh my God, look at you people!" But that's us. That's us clamoring around for.
It also says 5.1 surround sound. I think that's on all four. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's on all four. Yeah, because we're in the days now when they have basically all the original material, so they can do a 5.1 mix somewhat more easily than they could in the 70s and certainly in the 60s. So yeah, it's gonna be a thing.
When the news about this dropped the other day, I was looking on Facebook, and Mark Ayres had made a post about it, promoting the fact that he worked on it, because obviously he did. And there's a reply from Stephen Wyatt,
right,
about not being in there.
Right. Yeah, I know. He was writer of Great Show on the Galaxy. Yeah, there isn't like a meeting of the writers. I suppose they've kind of already done that for 26, and it was kind of like maybe even 24 too. And so
and 18
and 18. They've already sort of done that. It reminds me of the big giant panel I moderated at Gallifrey One that one year, which had 7 people from Greatest Show on the Galaxy. I always try to think of who it was. It was like Dee Sadler, Sylvester, Sophie, Mike Tucker, Stephen Wyatt, Jessica Martin, I think as well. And one, I always forget who it was. There's so many people.
Was it Bellboy?
No, it was not Dominic Gard. Or, no, I can't remember who it was now. There's a lot of people on that panel, though. It was fun. It was great. It's one of my favorite panels I've ever done. And yeah, it was cool. So I watched Greatest Show on the Galaxy. Mark Ayres, obviously. There we go. There's the other one, because he was there as well. And so that was cool, and this is going to be cool. October 21st, it comes out in the UK. There's no pre-order date that I looked at yesterday on Amazon or BBC Shop, so we'll wait and see when it's going to come out in North America here. Hopefully they don't wait another 11 months like they did for season 20. But
yeah. It was also the first trailer for the set in, I don't know how many releases, that wasn't like a story about an ex-companion or whatever.
And I'm fine with that. Perfectly fine with that. No offense, Pete McDowell, who also edited this one. He did this one as well. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, he's listing the credits as editor rather than like director.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As he would have been on the other stuff. Well, writer, director on the other stuff. But
yeah,
I kind of miss that stuff. It was, I don't care how cheesy it might have been or whatever, but it was nice to see like the Vicky one for season 2 or Leela for 15. Or
I love those. Just, who cares if they're cheesy? That's the whole point.
Yeah. Or, catching up with Ace before she showed up in Power of the Doctor and whatnot.
And I assume that canon's out the window because she's not a magnate in Power of the Doctor. Yeah. Or is she? We don't know.
I don't know. But, I mean, they've already done like here's what Ace is up to in season 26, so they can't really do that in 25, so it's fine. It's fine. They don't need to. They don't need to do that. It's fine.
And didn't Sophie Aldred write a book based around that kind of canon too?
Kind of,
I think.
Yeah, she did have a book.
A something Earth,
Childhood's Earth or Earth's End or something like that. Yeah, something.
No, it's the title spelled out Ace with the words.
Right. Yeah, and it's kind of not based on, but it sort of integrates that whole interstitial thing.
Yeah, don't remember what it was, but
I forget. But yeah, the words of the title, the first letter spelled out Ace.
Yeah. Anyway, that's coming out, as I said, October 21st in the UK. There'll be a BFI screening some point, probably close to that.
Probably.
They actually...
How much you want to bet it's going to be a remembrance?
It's got to be a remembrance. You got to put that one out there, right? I mean, although these Pete McTighe was even teasing about how the special edition of Happiness Patrol is quite spectacular, so maybe they do that one too. I don't know. We'll find out when the time comes. Who knows? One last bit of news before our chat with Tim Burrows. This is cool. So when is it? Saturday, 14th of September at Cadogan Hall, Big Finish is hosting a now sold out live recording of a brand new Big Finish adventure called The Stuff of Legend. So Paul McGann, India Fisher, Alex McQueen as the master, and Nicholas Briggs will be there as well, recording a live version of, and that's cool. Live with a studio audience and everything there. That's kind of cool. It'll all come out as part of the actual release later on down the line. There'll be a proper studio recorded version as well. But I think that is neat. Tickets went on sale on July the 5th, and they instantly sold out. So you can't get there unless you buy somewhere. There's 2 performances though at 2:30 and 7:30.
Is there going to be a recording of it released on video?
I don't know. It would just be people standing around microphones, so I don't know how much.
So
okay, maybe there is.
Even
I don't know.
Still? I mean,
it's a cool scene, right? You'd think it would. Maybe they would.
It's like watching a radio play, basically.
I'm sure there'll be something on the Big Finish YouTube channel when the thing happens. But yeah, that's a cool thing. For this is all in celebration of the 25th anniversary of Big Finish. So this is a pretty cool event that you can no longer go to unless you bought tickets for. Or can find other tickets because it's sold very quickly. So, cool idea, cool initiative. I look forward to seeing and or hearing the results of that. All right, that's it for our news and banter, folks. After the very short break, Tim Burrows updates us on all things missing episodes. It's been a while on this podcast since we've talked about missing episodes and stoked the rumor mill a little bit. So who better to disseminate those rumors, to talk about actual facts of what's been going on in the missing episode hunt, the missing media hunt, really, when you think about it in a general sort of sense, than the host and proprietor of the Doctor Who Missing Episodes podcast, Tim Burrows. Hi there, Tim.
Hello, Stephen. Now, was that a rhetorical question? Because I can name plenty of better people who can talk about this. Oh, what a pleasure to be back. How are you?
I'm speaking with you on. You've told me before recording that you have not slept in 30-odd hours. We're recording this on Friday, July the 5th. This episode's coming out July the 7th. Happy birthday, John Pertwee. And of course, the reason that you are still awake after 30 hours is because you were watching the election coverage throughout the night and into the morning. Is that right?
That's right. Our great nation has gone through its regular democratic process. And yeah, I've been up watching the election, which has been very interesting. Very interesting indeed. We are having a change of government. We've had a change of government. We have a new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
mm-hmm.
I am a slight missing episode obsessive. Would you like to know 2 general election missing episode related events that have happened in the last 24 hours?
Yes, I would actually. Yeah.
They're not very good. They're not very interesting, but see if we can fascinate you with these 2. There is an MP being re-elected. A friend of mine pointed out on Twitter. And my friend warned everyone to guard their film cans in Scotland because the MP is called Pamela Nash.
Not her. Not of all people.
I don't know if it's the same one, but just to be sure, listeners in Scotland, lock up your videotapes and film reels. The second one is... there is a new political party in the UK which is of the right, shall we say, and their leader, Nigel Farage, has been elected to sit as a Member of Parliament for Clacton.
Mm-hmm.
The incumbent MP, the outgoing MP, is a Conservative Member of Parliament called Giles Watling.
All right. Watling, you say?
Watling. So Giles Watling happens to be the son of Jack Watling.
Well.
And happens to be the brother of Deborah Watling, the late, arguably great Deborah Watling of the Second Doctor era.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, well. whose, of course, episodes are mostly missing. But
So there you go. While this carnage has been going on in the British electorate, I've been carefully accruing missing episodes data.
Right.
Seeing missing episodes everywhere.
Clearly on the brain, as it always is. I think last time, I don't even remember when you were on last. I didn't check. Sorry. But it was about Film is Fabulous, which was at the time, I think, a burgeoning movement that was about to have a public event, and now they've started pilot projects and have been chronicling film collections, have been releasing some finds of missing material. No Doctor Who yet, but certainly some interesting stuff. What can you share about what the Film is Fabulous initiative has found? So
to refresh your listeners on Film is Fabulous. This is a small group of film enthusiasts who have got together and are alarmed by the plight of film, particularly in the UK, which is to say that film collectors tend to be of a certain age, and what they've observed is that when collectors sadly pass away, a lot of film ends up in skips as estates get cleared, or the collection isn't passed on, and this moved them to start this initiative to preserve film. And they're not TV enthusiasts; they are cinema enthusiasts. John Franklin, who is the sort of person coordinating it in the main. He collects like film noir, for instance.
Right.
But they are aware that film collectors often acquire bits of television, which isn't their primary interest, and are obviously aware of missing TV. And so when we spoke last time, they were just gearing up to do their first event, which was in October in Leicester. And they were going to reveal a number of items of missing TV that they'd found. They've also found a missing black and white silent movie, which I think we discussed last time. So the event happened in Leicester, and it was a brilliant day. There were a number of film traders there, so you could go and look at film and handle film and buy film, and indeed I did. I'll mention an item that I purchased later. And then they had a series of talks with archivists from the BFI, from De Montfort University, from regional archives, and they had our friends from the restoration team there. So Paul Venezes was there, Steve Roberts was there, and these are the people who are involved in either returning, finding, restoring missing TV, and indeed Doctor Who. So it's plenty interesting, but they didn't announce much of interest in terms of having found items. They did announce that they'd found an episode of Basil Brush.
Right.
Everyone was waiting for that. And then it just so happened that a collector who was there on the day happened to overhear Paul talking about Basil Brush and said, "Oh, I've got one of those." So one led to two. And since then they found a third, I believe. All from the same series, which is nice enough. And that was the first event. It was really interesting, chin wagging with a load of film collectors, reinforcing that idea that they're not interested in TV at all. They want to talk about film, cinema, the cinematic experience. So that event came and went, and then what they've been doing since then is trying to get this project moving, which is to get in touch with collectors and the estates of deceased film collectors, and starting to try and figure out how they can best preserve films. So what they've done is to get going and approaching this problem, they're working with the Cinema and Television Research Institute at De Montfort University. And they've launched a pilot scheme. They're calling it a pilot scheme, where they've identified various estates of collectors. I believe so far that all of the collectors are deceased, sadly, that they've announced so far. And they're taking, with permission of the estate, a sample of 500 films, just a sample. And they're taking them to assess them, catalogue them, to get a feeling for what a film collection constitutes.
Right.
And they're selecting these 500 films. Well, they've been asked once, and the example they gave was, well, there was just a room that happened to have 500 films in, so we just took those to clear a passageway.
Right. Because
you have to imagine that these film collectors very often are hoarders by nature. So, I've heard quite a few times that film collectors are floor to ceiling with film. And so they've announced this pilot scheme. I think they're now on their third study.
Right.
The first one they announced was from the estate of the former managing director of Network Distributing, a gentleman by the name of Tim Burrows, who sadly died prematurely. And there were plenty of items of interest in this sample. And then I don't believe they've announced who the second case study is. I think they're being very careful around GDPR and such. And they've announced a number of things that they've found of interest there. And then they've also announced that the estate of Terry Burnett is a case study, and that's happening in another part of the country down south. And that's really interesting because you'll remember that Terry Burnett returned to missing episodes of Doctor Who in 2011, Galaxy 4 Airlock and The Underwater Menace Episode 2. And while I can't believe that they wouldn't have eliminated more Doctor Who at the time, so I don't think there's any more possibility of Doctor Who being there. Terry Burnett also returned an episode of a largely missing series called Hugh and I, which is a 1960s comedy, and indeed some of his estate hasn't been catalogued, so that's a third case study as part of this scheme. And so they're planning on doing 6 of these case studies, and over 6 months, and they're approaching the halfway point. John has posted, or Film is Fabulous have posted online, that they're in contact with 20 estates.
Goodness.
I think they're all estates. There might be some dealers in there, but they're liaising with 20 collections, which they're working out how to deal with. And this strikes me as a huge logistical exercise. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of the photographs, Stephen, but these are rooms full of film, and that's just the 500. And some of these collectors have thousands of items, and these aren't flash drives. These are heavy metal. Cans of film.
Tim's holding up his one can of film that he bought. Yeah.
This is backbreaking work that De Montfort is involved in. So, what kind of thing have they found so far?
Yeah.
Well, they've announced plenty of items, some of which are missing and some of which are rare. And your ears might prick up when we get to the rare ones, especially. But they found Basil Brush, as we've said. They found a black and white minstrel show, which will never see the light of day for obvious reasons. No. They found a reel of play school auditions, which is interesting. So play school Go on, Steve.
Yeah, no, it was a show, right? And I remember when that was announced, like an audition tape. This is from like 76 too. So this is like not necessarily missing stuff, but like it's kind of like the pilot episode in that there was like
absolutely, it's behind the scenes rarities. Play School being a preschool kids TV early learning type thing, which ran for decades.
Right.
I watched it as a kid. That was from 76, as you say. Now, something that's really premium that they found is there was a very long running BBC TV show called Z Cars, which had various spin-offs such as Softly Softly and others. I won't bore you with the Z Cars universe, but they found a reel of film inserts from a missing episode of Z Cars. Insert rushes, they're described as, from 67. So with that and the Play School, they're finding interesting material, which has all of this has left the BBC at some point, but this shows that interesting material is being saved in the 1970s. They found sole surviving prints of premium items, and these are well-known titles like The Likely Lads. So the BBC have a copy, but they don't have the print. So the BBC's copy was made of these prints. These are rare things. They found rare duplicates. So in 2001, a missing episode of Dad's Army was found and returned. In fact, 2 episodes were returned in 2001.
Right.
They found another copy of The Battle of Godfrey's Cottage. These are hen's teeth. These are extremely rare. They found some Steptoe and Son, which was a long-running premium BBC comedy, which are copies of existing shows. They found Till Death Do Us Part, and so on. They found, at the start of June, they held another event, and they aired some material that had been announced previously, and I went to it. It was a difficult trek to get to. It was in the middle of nowhere, a town called Hereford.
I seem to recall that you weren't going to go, and then at the 11th hour you sod it, let's go.
It was literally the 11th hour. I was sat there at 11 p.m. the night before looking at how to do this 5.5 hour rail journey.
Right.
And at 11 p.m. I kind of said, sod it, I'm going. So I went, and I had the best time. And we watched an episode of Basil Brush. We watched an episode of a regional TV Tom Jones musical variety show. I could have done without that in my life, but it went down extremely well. And then they showed a 50-minute or hour-long episode of a drama called Mogul, which became The Troubleshooters, which was fantastic. And that would be a premium item. So the point is that so far they have found BBC material, and they keep finding BBC material. Oh, at this event, by the way, we were mingling with the likes of Sue Malden and film collectors who were there talking, and there was a bit of a presentation about film collectors, and one of the collectors, it happens to be the collector who returned the Basil Brush at the previous event. He said, well, funnily enough, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, I was mucking around in the shed and I found a magnetic track. So 35mm film can either have optical sound or a magnetic track, which is separate. So he said, so I just played this magnetic audio track, and it happened to be an episode of Doctor Who.
Whoa.
I don't know what, but but I have said, can somebody find out?
Right.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So at some point, I'm by no means an expert, but at some point that's left the BBC and presumably was separated from its audio, from its visual component. Probably did it leave from the film library? But there are certain episodes of Doctor Who which were recorded direct onto 35mm.
That's right.
Like the Space Pirates 2, Wheel in Space 6, Power of the Daleks 6,
Crotons 1,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's about 8 or so, aren't there?
Yeah.
So it just shows that this material was leaving the BBC regularly.
Yeah,
in the 70s.
I think, like, as a relative layperson in all this, I would think that, like, finding multiple copies, even if it's another copy of an episode that was previously missing but found, shows that there weren't necessarily just one film print of a show kicking around.
Yeah.
You know, that's what kind of,
sure.
and two just happened to turn up in England at the same time, you know. There's been like flow charts made of like how many copies of Doctor Who missing episodes were made, and bicycling and all that, and like that to me kind of opens up the possibility of like how, you know, we think that maybe 3 or 4 film copies of one episode was made. There might be more when you think about just how remarkable it is to have 2 episodes of Steptoe and Son turning up, or Dad's Army. Rather.
Well, they've found 3 episodes, or 3 copies of episode 2 of the Time Meddler.
they're right there. Yeah,
they've got I think 2 copies of one of the episodes of the 10th Planet, which is strange in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have Film is Fabulous who are finding stuff, interesting copies of premium BBC shows, and when they're telling us that they're dealing with 20 estates. And the thing with film collecting is sure, film collectors have died and material has gone into skips to be junked and is gone.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a network of film collectors. And so what happens is often when a collector passes away, another collector comes and picks up their collection.
Right.
And so you've got 2 processes going on. You've got outlying collections which can't be saved going to landfill. Mm-hmm. And then you've got another phenomenon happening where collectors are hoovering up collections to the point they become unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So it's just fantastic what's going on because this is being addressed. You can't, you know, junking of film would have been happening if they hadn't have started this initiative. So you can't worry about that. The fact that they're doing something and they're embedded in the film collectors community is wonderful. And, you know, they've said a number of times they are surprised because their focus isn't on TV on film. Their focus is on film, as in movies.
Yeah. They're
surprised at just how much material left the BBC.
Yeah.
I'm lucky in that I have an interest beyond Doctor Who, so all of this is of great interest to me. But even just on the Doctor Who front, which is quite limited, you know, there weren't that many prints of Doctor Who flying around in the 1960s, compared to the entire BBC output, which would have been being sold overseas, more or less.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that they will continue to find premium items. Now, there has been a really interesting development, which they've talked about as well.
Okay.
And that's that they've had the idea to talk to the BBC Pensioners Association. So they've advertised in the newsletter or whatever it is of the BBC Pensioners Association. And the reason they've done that is because while it is true that film collectors at large are not interested in TV and they'll pick up the odd bit, without putting too fine a point on it, BBC employees in the 1970s were salvaging film which was due to be junked.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back and listen to the interview I did with them last year, you know, they tell the story of a film collector now deceased who said they were working in an area of the BBC and on the shelf behind them one afternoon were all the 35mm prints of A for Andromeda.
Right.
And in the morning, they're gone.
Wow.
So this isn't people tiptoeing up to a skip when it's dark and just taking...
just like loading them up on a hand truck and
items.
wheeling them out to the back of the car. And
yeah, absolutely. And you know, there are this happened with thousands of items. It just seems that shape to me, and that everything that's been found in private hands has been salvaged from the BBC when it was due to be junked. So, you know, this wasn't one or two films at a time. This seems to me to have been a wholesale activity, and good for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this advertising to the BBC Pensioners Association and trying to just again repeat that thing that, you know, we don't have a problem with it. Talk to us. Have you got what's in your cupboards? Is a really good approach. I don't know whether they've been successful. I believe Sue Malden is involved in that as well. But that's another really great thing, which I think they've dabbled with over the years. But this is the first sort of direct approach, almost official approach via the association to talk to these employees to see if they've got anything and would be willing to share. And it's not a problem if you have it. So I'm really grateful and feeling quite positive about the potential for whatever there is to be found that is within reach of the team. I'm quite positive about the state of play at the moment. And Paul Venezes is involved with it as well, so there's absolutely no risk of anything going unnoticed.
Right.
You know, oh, that's a Doctor Who, they're all out on DVD. You know, it's an extremely positive state of affairs. And just to say, you know, they have a Facebook page, they have a Twitter feed, and they're extremely open and conversational. There doesn't seem to be any cloak and dagger about them. So you can ask questions. They're really responsive on answering questions. They're being very open and honest about what they're finding. They're showing some great cans of film with ABC, you know, Australia ABC labels on, Steptoe and Son, that kind of thing. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Do you know what they're doing with De Montfort University? Like, is that where they're being like stored? Because they've shared a couple videos of them and, like, you know, looking through the shelves and stuff. And I assume they're not doing any restoration or anything like that yet.
No. They are handling the films. They are examining them. They're labeling them. And they're inspecting them. And then what they're doing is they're just logging what's there. And then they go. I believe that they go back to the estate or the collector and say, "That's what you have."
Right. And
it's just trying to build up a sense of the kind of material that is out there. And you know, they have state-of-the-art facilities there. They're using a film archivist to do the work.
Okay, good.
And obviously there's some academic involvement.
Yeah.
And that's how it's, you know, they're probably putting money in to do that. So, yeah, extremely positive and measured and professional. Yeah, it's great.
Do you know if there's any further events being planned at all, or putting you on the spot a little bit asking that? But
I don't, Stephen, to be honest. I think obviously they're considering what to do next, and they've done a couple of events. I'm sure there will be events in the future, but I don't think there's anything planned at the moment. Recently, they've announced that they're looking at a more, I don't know whether they describe it as a more nimble way of dealing with this, just because of the pure logistics. So they've announced that they're now working with auction houses to try and get some remuneration for the estates with non-missing items.
Right.
And this new tack, I'm told, bodes well for rare and missing items in the second half of the case study. I don't know why, but that's what I'm told.
Interesting. So where did you acquire your film can, and what is it of? It's not Doctor Who, but
I actually got 3 films.
Okay.
I picked up 3 films. There was one episode of a famous BBC documentary series called Civilization, and this is a big plastic reel of film, and it's episode 2 of that. I acquired an episode of Hancock, which had a lovely ABC label on it. Now, unfortunately, that's a bit vinegary.
Oh, no.
It's not a problem.
Okay.
It just has a whiff of vinegar when you take the can off. So that's now in a colder area of the room with the lid off, and that's doing its thing. But it's such a lovely piece of TV history. But the really interesting thing there was me and another Doctor Who guy at this event, and we saw this film and went, "Oh, have you seen that film with an NZBC label on it?"
Right.
Which is the New Zealand Broadcasting Corporation. So as you know, I'm a bicycling nerd. Any research that's been done on film bicycling, which is the moving of film prints from country to country, I am all over it. So what I bought was an episode of Till Death Us Do Part with an NZBC label on there.
Right.
That is such a lovely thing to have. It's really fascinating to think that this can of film, which I'm holding, went from the BBC to New Zealand and back. But as you know, John Preddle, who is an absolutely fantastic researcher, he is the guy who tries to piece together how all these film prints moved around the world. John Preddle has access to the NZBC film traffic logs, which describe which films came in, which films went out, and where they went. And they've got those because of a fantastic find by another New Zealand researcher called Graham Howard. Anyway, so I said, John, I've got this film with NZBC on it. Can you identify what happened to this can of film? So he did. He looked in the paperwork, and the film was received on the 6th of June 1967 in New Zealand as part of a batch of 17 episodes. It was censored on the 1st of February 1968. It was bicycled around New Zealand and aired regionally in May, June, July 68.
Right.
Then all 17 episodes were sent to Nigeria.
Right.
On the 18th of September 1969. Then they all went back to New Zealand on the 5th of Feb 1970 for repeats. And then it was sent to the UK, probably Villiers House, where at some point it was destined no further use, and it was kindly salvaged and made its way onto the collector's market. So that's exactly the kind of thing that the search for Doctor Who is about.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because we have to remember when we're talking about bicycling of prints, it's not just Doctor Who. Doctor Who was a small part of it. Thousands of film cans were making their way around the globe. So it's lovely to have this antique film here, which has been from England to New Zealand, New Zealand to Nigeria, Nigeria back to New Zealand, back to the UK. Could have gone to Gibraltar then and back. We're not sure. And now is sat underneath my coffee table.
It was BBC, right? Was
BBC? Absolutely.
So you could almost presume, to save on shipping rates, they wouldn't necessarily just send 17 episodes until Death Do Us Part in one shipment. They might say, let's package some Doctor Who in there too, there are some other stuff that might also indicate where tapes would have been.
The other film I have is, as I said, it's an episode of Hancock. And it's an ABC, so Australia copy.
Right.
And we often talk in Doctor Who terms. So the two films that Terry Burnett returned in 2011, they were returned to the UK from Australia in 1975. Now, I imagine this film came with them because Australia sent back everything in 1975 in readiness for colour.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting to have these pieces of history. Now, a man who we don't hear about much these days, if I can mention him, Philip Morris.
Okay.
So Philip Morris returned 9 episodes of Doctor Who in 2013.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah.
The Enemy of the World and the Web of Fear.
Found 10, returned 9, basically. So how we'll frame it.
So the story goes.
Yeah.
So this isn't about Film is Fabulous, but this is about other avenues of how things might come back. And I still haven't quite got over all that stuff that happened in 2013. So, as you'll remember, we were told that he'd been to Ethiopia. We heard nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We were told that he went to Sierra Leone, and there was some confusion about what was destroyed, what wasn't destroyed. You can hear all about that on my podcast, folks. But we still haven't heard the full story of what happened there. And indeed, he did find material in Sierra Leone. I think he found 2 episodes of Morecambe Wise, which have been returned and restored and broadcast. And so this question of whether Philip Morris found anything else pops into my noggin from time to time, and I chew over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe we've heard the full story about Nigeria yet. So has Philip Morris got more Doctor Who? I don't know. He could have. Has he got more material of interest and a story to tell? He most certainly does. And the reason I drop that in there is because when you look over the detail of the photographs that Phil has published of himself over the years, there's a photograph he took of himself in what I presume is his own film store. And this Till Death Us Do Part episode has a code written on the side of the can, which is in a particular format. It's 30B-20. So 2 digits, a letter, a dash, and 2 digits.
Right.
And on one of these photographs that Phil has published of himself, there's another can with a code on it like that.
Oh.
So a Nigerian film.
Uh-huh.
Not saying it's missing, not saying, it's anything that might be of particular interest to us. But there is more material that Philip Morris has, for sure, that he's not talked about. So we've got the Film is Fabulous avenue. Who knows what Philip Morris is up to? I don't know, but there are still unexplored areas of interest there. Whether he ever tells anybody what happened, I don't know. But I've not completely ruled that out either as an avenue to getting things back. Sorry, we've gone from a really great initiative to quite a nerdy hangover from 10 years ago.
Well,
but
that is the missing episodes hunt in a nutshell, though.
As soon as you get onto film bicycling, names will reappear from the past.
Exactly. Those names indeed will be bicycled as well. Speaking of Australia, the fellows at the 42 To Doomsday podcast posted a recent update in the last couple of months about this hoarder, we'll call them, I suppose, but that might be a disingenuous term, but in Melbourne, who had passed on and had a massive amount of home recordings, some of which were sadly junked as they were cleaning out the estate. But
not some of them.
Right.
Not some of them. Truckloads.
God. Yeah.
So I mean, the 42 To Doomsday podcast is a brilliant podcast, and the episodes you can go and listen to. I think they've done 3 covering this story now. But yes, a Doctor Who fan, Erin Challenger, who runs a merchandise, a sci-fi merchandise shop in Melbourne, got wind of this estate. So he was a hoarder, sadly, floor to ceiling hoarding items.
Yeah.
And he got made aware that this hoarder had sadly passed away. And by the time he got to the property, family members or friends or what have you had already taken lorries full of the older material that was there. So we're talking reel-to-reel 1970s videotape. I think the rest of the collection is VHS with some quantity of reel-to-reel stuff left, and the kind of window that. So this is all recorded off air.
Yep. And
the window of the vintage of these particular tapes could coincide with the back end of the repeat runs of black and white Doctor Who. So we're essentially there's a small window of opportunity for them to find the space pirates, which I think last went out in 73 or 74.
Right.
I don't want to do the story an injustice. It's a fascinating story.
Oh.
So just go and listen to it. But so they did an update a while ago, and the older tapes they're shipping to the UK because they need specialist knowledge and playback equipment to access them. So they're getting it to specialists over here. Mm-hmm. They've sent some of that back, and they found some interesting things. So I think they mentioned they'd found a full episode of Star Trek, which was broadcast in that window of early 70s, mid-early 70s. There was talk of they found an episode of Softly Softly. So Softly Softly is a spin-off from Z-Cars, premium find if it was missing, and most of it is.
Right.
But it was an existing episode.
Mm-hmm.
So the hope very much is that there's a very small chance they will find some Doctor Who, vanishingly small chance, I think. But they're finding lots of interesting missing Australian material, potentially.
Mm-hmm. They're
finding lots of adverts and stuff. And again, this find is so vast, they've now got 2 universities working on it.
Goodness.
Getting students to, learn how to preserve, catalog, watch, access, log it, all of that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So plenty interesting. There was one really alarming thing they said on that podcast, which was my alarm that I heard, is that when they found particular items, they've gone to the copyright holders, one of the regional Australian broadcasters or network broadcasters or whatever, and saying, "This is your show. Do you have it?" And they were saying, "Well, we don't know what we have.
Oh,
we don't know what exists."
Wow.
Which struck a chord with me. We're very fortunate in the UK that there are individuals, both official, unofficial, Film is Fabulous, Kaleidoscope, BBC Archiving, the BFI, who are all across this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go further afield, I mean, I've no idea what the situation is in Canada.
Right.
But, who knows what could be found in the countries which shared BBC material. Or indeed, Canadian broadcasters. Who knows what exists in their archives of CBC material. I have no idea. But it just really struck a chord that we're missing an opportunity here. Everywhere is missing an opportunity, and how lucky we are in the UK in particular to have all of these organisations who are fascinated by missing TV, and how other regions, countries aren't so lucky. So yeah, that's a fascinating story. Go and check it out. 42 To Doomsday podcast. Really interesting.
Yeah. Links in the show notes. I linked to that and to the Film is Fabulous website. What was kind of also heartening is that, that Star Trek episode that they found with adverts and everything in it was properly labeled. Like it's not like it was just a massive unlabeled stuff. The tapes were properly labeled and everything. So basically, it's a good bet to, if you see it on the spine, that's what's actually going to be on the tape. Of course, they'll still check into it because we've been duped before, finding film cans with the wrong film can inside. For good. I think there's a Doctor Who episode or two that was found in a mislabeled film can. So it's so there could be hope there, but
it keeps happening, Stephen.
Yeah,
these large collections keep getting found because people are looking for them and people are alert. So the very best thing we can do is, one, talk about it in the hope that we break out of our little bubble and somebody hears and think, "Oh yeah, Uncle Jack had a few films," but getting our respective listeners to also check out, ask relatives, ask about advertise in local newspapers, go to film camera shops and see if they've got any old film in the back. You never know. So if we keep talking about it and spreading the word, that's the very best thing we can do, because people keep finding things.
Absolutely.
It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time till we get the space pirates.
Believe.
Or the reign of terror.
But I thought you've already sold me on space pirates, which I legitimately would.
I would love to see the space.
I would love
pirates
to see it.
Would I?
I would love to. Listen, John Cura died sadly partway through Mind Robber. I think, at least he certainly stopped taking telesnaps. So we have no visual record of it. We only have an audio record of it. The main cast aren't even there for the last episode of it. It's early Robert Holmes. I'm fascinated by the space pirates. I'm utterly fascinated by it, and it is.
It just so happens the one episode we have isn't so good.
No, that's a problem. It looks
issue.
pristine because it's on 35mm film. Looks and sounds pristine, but and we have the offshoots for some of the bottle shots. But apart from that,
indeed,
we have nothing else. So it is when people, Doctor Who magazine did the big poll, which missing episode do you want to see back the most? I didn't vote for it because it was criminal to have to choose one, but I don't think I can only guess that not nearly enough people chose the Space Pirates episode 4, 5, or 6. We don't even know what Dama Seeger looks like, for crying out loud. It's just
I was going a little bit over the top in my reactions to that. It got some very tribal responses, and I was just about the worst person. I was berating people for voting for the 10th Planet episode 4.
We already know.
How dare you?
We've got enough of it, don't we?
We've got enough. We've got the important bits.
Yeah.
Stop throwing away my other episode that I want to watch.
Anyway, is there anything else on missing episodes? Any other leads you have? I mean, it seems to me like the broadcasting angle has kind of wound down, and they've checked the TV archives of international broadcasters in the 60s and 70s, and now it seems just that the private film collectors and or people who taped TV off of Australian TV in the early 1970s is probably the way to go for any hope of finding anything else that's missing.
Private collectors are the way forward. Look, we still don't know what happened in the 2010s regarding Ethiopia, Sierra Leone, Singapore. We still don't know because the story hasn't been told. So there is a responsibility to tell that story or record it somewhere, because nobody lives forever. And I've seen photos of African film stores online. One that sticks in mind is thousands of old films in a Libyan film store where Doctor Who has been sold. They didn't broadcast any missing episodes. But, has that been checked? We don't know. So there's still possibilities. So I feel strongly that Mr. Morris should say where he's been and rule things out. But other than that, I think largely broadcast archives have been ruled out. But there is great research going on into what happened in the 1970s with Villiers House in the UK, where those films went, and there are specialists looking into this and chasing down leads and talking to collectors and seeking out former BBC employees. So that's a really healthy position to be in my book. The only other quirky thing that happened is a collector by the name of David Stead. David Stead was involved in the return of The Wheel in Space.
That's right.
Episode 3 and one of the two Faceless Ones episodes in the 80s. He was also the person who, when Tomb of the Cybermen was returned in 92, he was the person who found it on the loading bay. Interesting. So I think on the VHS release, there might have been a brief interview on one of those early 90s mini documentaries. There might have been a snippet. Anyway, he returned a couple of missing episodes, of one of Softly Softly and one of Dixon of Dock Green, which again are not of interest to a Doctor Who audience, but these are premium items. Yeah, he returned those a couple of months ago as a tribute to a friend of his who had recently passed. Another vintage TV enthusiast. So stuff is out there. It's fascinating to think about that there's still all this stuff after all these years, that there are still the odd
film can here or there, especially amongst people who, as you say at the beginning of all this, aren't even necessarily interested in collecting such things, yet it seems to just be like maybe 16 millimeter film cans are just the right depth to sort of like fill out a stack of 35 mil things or something like that, so that things don't rack. It's basically the bubble wrap of for film collectors. It's the one thing that that's most sought after now. You know.
Yeah, sure.
Well, hey, it's been lovely chatting with you as always, Tim. I noticed that there was a Patreon update for the slightly on a hiatus missing episodes podcast. I think I messaged you a while back about coming on RFS, and it seems to always coincide with the spate of activity for your own podcast.
Absolutely, yeah. Every time we seem to be. So, I've got a busy life, I've got a busy job,
right?
And I can do the podcast when I can do the podcast, but I'm back. And so, the 10th Planet will be along shortly. It's on the Patreon feed now. The Power of the Daleks is recorded. I did a great discussion with Rhys Williams, who's a Doctor Who researcher. He's been on plenty of the podcasts. A gentleman by the name of John Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
So John Kelly's name is on just about every classic Doctor Who DVD extra.
Mm-hmm.
He always gets a with thanks to, or produced by, or what have you. He's a really interesting guy, and he's on talking about Power of the Daleks. And I dragged along another missing episode sufferer, Richard Smith, off the Something Who podcast.
Yeah.
So, that'll be along shortly. I've also recorded, this was a long time coming, but I've recorded a Missing I, Claudius podcast with Paul Venezes. That's in the can. That's really interesting. That goes more into the nitty-gritty of how videotape was handled in the BBC. So that'll be along. And I've got some really great interviews lined up with some legends of missing episodes who don't get talked about a great deal. And, it's back, so you can find the Doctor Who Missing Episodes podcast on YouTube, wherever you find your podcasts. I'm on Twitter at Doctor Who Podcasters with a DR.
Mm-hmm.
I'm everywhere.
You're back.
I was going to say like a Missing Episodes Jesus, but I don't think that's true or appropriate.
Right. Well, if ever you get into a lull again, I'll be sure to drop a line to invite you on to talk about missing episodes again, so you can record another spate. Hopefully the next time you're on, we'll be talking about some actual found material, perhaps through the Film is Fabulous initiative.
Who knows? I would never say never.
Exactly. Tim, once again, thanks for popping along to talk about missing episodes.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Tim. Since recording that, I'm about halfway through listening to the Patreon version of the episode on the 10th Planet, talking all about that and the one missing episode that with the 10th Planet. Love missing episodes. I know a lot of you folk out there come out of the woodwork whenever missing episodes talk is happening. So it's some intriguing developments there, I think, with the Film is Fabulous thing, and basically how film collectors are the last saving grace to find anything when it comes to missing media, as opposed to scouring old television libraries. So come on out, you film collectors. There is an amnesty. You will not be punished for holding BBC episodes.
They're all black bagged and sent to a secret dungeon in the BBC, in the old BBC television center.
Yeah, exactly.
There's never been repercussions for returning.
No. There hasn't. No.
Film cans and whatever.
Repercussion? What repercussions? This is not 1984, for God's sake.
I know. Well, there was. Who is it? One half.
It's still copyrighted material. It's sold, and BBC's not giving it a cut.
I guess.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. There's there are still some like not necessarily legal, or maybe at best gray area stuff.
That seems pretty silly though.
Yeah, well, it was who was it?
Silly.
Was it Bob Morecambe? Some famous British comedian. Don't at me. I know who. I'll Google it later. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Bob Mortimer.
Bob Mortimer. Is that who it was? I don't
know.
I don't remember. Shut up, people who were talking to me in my head. Was also a film collector. And had basically they says, no, you have to burn all your copies of this because it's not copyright and stuff. And so I think that still like resonates through the film collecting community. So they're a little skittish of this. So.
There is legitimate fear where there really shouldn't be.
Things have changed considerably in the past 2 decades. So so if you are a film collector and worried about the BBC punishing you, all they want to do is borrow your copies and transfer them and then hand them back to you because you may be sitting on a wealth of old television history.
I think a lot of this is also people just not understanding. Like, remember before YouTube when trailers came out and like Lucasfilm, for instance, is like, you can't possibly host this trailer. Only we can host this trailer, which seems insane, but that was the prevailing thinking at the time. So
different times now. So that's good news. As we alluded to earlier on in the episode, next week Richard Bignell comes on to talk about all of his work on PDF archive. There's a wealth of PDF stuff on the Blu-rays. If you want to get yourself an external Blu-ray drive, get it because there is so much stuff that you get on the disc when you pop them into a drive. PDFs of scripts and camera plans and VFX breakdowns and all sorts of stuff. We talk all about what it takes to get that onto each collection release.
And even for scripts, there's often, shooting script, camera script, original draft, early drafts, and whatever, like 7 copies of a script.
Lots of stuff on there. We break it down with Richard Bignell, legendary Doctor Who historian Richard Bignell, next week on the podcast. So there we go. We might even get that next episode done in less than 2 hours, unlike this episode. No promises, though.
I doubt it.
Yeah. You never know. We'll give it a shot. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you next week. And until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.